Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night once again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night once again to you all, and Merry Christmas still. For some I know it's already past, others it's still Christmas for a number of hours. Um, so I just finished binging Runaways Season 2, as you see from the poster right there. Um, and overall, I have to say, it was a good season. Now, again, warnings as if you happen to look at my review for the first season or most of my reviews in general, they're going to be spoilers. So you've been warned, and I believe I put it in the title. So yeah. Anyway, um, so as a brief little recap for those who may not know, Runaways is about a group of teens. Um, where'd it go? Oh, a group of teens, as we see here, who find out that their parents, who are part of an organization called the Pride, are bad guys. True, bad guys of every word. In the comic, they are a diverse group, made up of a diverse group of criminals. Uh, Carolina, the long blonde you see in the top picture. Her parents are aliens called Majestanians. Chase, the guy next to her in the blue shirt, his parents were just mad scientists. Alex, who's in the middle, his parents are mob, basically. Nico, next to him, her parents are magic users, witch warlock, if you will. Gert with the purple hair um, has a telepathic link to a bioengineered dinosaur, and Molly on the end um, is the daughter of mutants. So that is a quick intro to the team, if you will, themselves. Whereas a few differences are that the Pride and the TV incarnation do not follow that suit. And again, remember, Runaways has been confirmed as being part of the MCU. So you would think, why might they not explore some of these other things? But again, I guess they want to keep them kind of still grounded to it. So in the TV show, as opposed to it, Carolina is half alien um, instead of full or alien. Gert's parents aren't. Oh, and I forgot to mention Gert, who it has a telepathic bond to the Deinonychus, the dinosaur. Her parents are time travelers, so they're just scientists. Nico's parents aren't with dark wizards, though there's kind of hints that they're, as we'll get into again later, we'll get into later that her mother may have connections or roots to it. I don't know. Um, and it- yeah, and Molly, who is the daughter of mutants, as we don't have mutants in the MCU as of yet until this deal goes through, which I believe is supposed to be the Fox deal, beginning of the year, but previously not allowed to use mutants. So they just made her kind of get her powers as a result of a lab accident that claimed her parents' death, who were normal. So that is a quick introduction to the Pride and the Runaways team themselves. Now, one more difference I will say for those of you who may have read the comics, and again, if you have never read the comics for the Runaway, I implore you, it is a great, even if you've never read comics, it is a amazing read by Brian K. Vaughan, I believe it is. Um, and yeah, they're, from any bookstore chain, Books a Million, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, whatever. I'm sure you can find the collections of the different volumes or iterations of the series. They're excellent. Anyways, so one of the main differences and kind of the crux for the TV show from season one and going into season two, as you see the pride down here in the line are all the parents, and the guy in the suit sitting is Jonah, who is the alien father of Carolina. Again, instead of both her parents, the Deans in the comics, both of them are actually aliens in exile. So Jonah played by the excellent, the always great to see Julian McMahon. Be it from, I know people have various feelings on the Fantastic Four movies, Doctor Doom, to his role as I think it was in Charmed, I believe Cole, I think. Yeah. It's been a while since I've watched the series, excuse me. But anyways, always plays such a great villain or bad guy. Um, so Jonah, who is behind the Church of Gaborum, I guess you could say is the big bad for the series in general. And from where we left off in season one, where he was, of course, revealed to be uh, Carolina's father, and an alien, which the race in the comics are known as Magistanians, um, but they're known as Gaborum here, which the Gaborum, comic wise, are a race of old god, like biblical type old, those type old gods, other gods, if you will, who require sacrifices for other reasons, whereas Jonah requires the sacrifices to extend his life. Anyways, so he's like the Gaborum in that sense, but they kind of mesh the Gaborum uh, with the Magistanians, which personally, I think they could have still done something, even if they didn't want to go to the Gaborum God issue concept. I think they still could have kept the Magistanians as they are. But anyways, that notwithstanding, so yeah, sorry, on track. But we see that, after all the events of season one, and they literally, the last scene of season one, they are running away after a battle with Jonah. We pick up right after that. They're on the run, trying to figure out what's going on. Um, and in the midst of things, they stumble into the hostel, which now, as I think about it, I should have um, got a picture clip for that. But anyways, which is a buried, like dilapidated hotel mansion, I guess. Um, which I will give them props. The hostel looked really cool. What we saw of it, I mean, it does matches from a lot of the comic images, which you've seen, which is their hideout, and again, many shenanigans, different adventures ensue through the season as we deal with the Runaways again, trying to deal with their parents, trying to figure out how to take them down because they're basically first framed for kidnapping Molly, which is what was done in the comics, and then framed for the murder of one of the girls that had disappeared. Um, and it's the back and forth between their parents who are being hoodwinked by Jonah, and they find out, the full truth behind a lot. I mean, they know about Jonah, but they find out, of course, he is not as benevolent as they might have thought in their own warped visions. But anyways, through the adventures, we do see, so a few new characters introduced, which other than just kind of giving an overall general feeling of, like I said, like the series and everything, I wanted to talk about. So one of which is Topher, where's Topher? Right there. So, who is an individual in the series who uh, hears about, sees Molly, and has glowing eyes, yellow eyes like she does. And we come to find out that his powers, where he tries to hoodwink her into thinking they might be related somehow and whatnot, he actually, similar to Molly, his powers are derived from stones that were part of the that the Hernandez's, Molly's parents, who in the comics were Hayes. Again, they made a shift from Caucasian to Latino in here, which is not a big thing. And they aged her up because Molly's like, I think, 11 in the comics. But creative choices, whatever, it works. I mean, I didn't care for the change as much. I didn't think it needed to be made, but I guess for the content and them as a cohesive group, it figured Molly needed to be closer in age to the rest. Um, Anyways, so um, Topher here follows them and you know tries to get in good with them and whatnot, and then it's revealed he's kind of he's a junkie basically, where the rocks that had something to do with Molly receiving her powers, he crushed them up to make them kind of like a powder for a drug, which would give him bits of power. Now, I admit, when I first saw this, and you and comic readers will know what I'm referring to by this. In the comics where Molly's a mutant, I mean, in the world of mutants, the X-Men and whatnot, uh, at a certain point in the late 90s, early, no, 2000s, because it's a fairly newer thing, there's a thing called um, MGH, mutant growth hormone, which basically a drug derived from mutants that would give people temporary powers. And at first, when I saw that, because knowing that mutants may be available to Marvel, I mean to Marvel Studios, Disney soon, and there are supposedly plans to incorporate them, that it might have been leading there. But so I guess they just kind of took that concept and tweaked it, which was okay. But as a comic fan, I had really hoped that they would have. I knew they weren't going to do this, but done stayed closer to the character of Topher in the comic, who is a vampire. Actually, at first, he just tries to play it off, as I said, that he is a fellow runaway evil parent, yada yada yada. He and Nico get into a thing, whereas in this series, Nico and Carolina are firmly established. um, and any confusion, I guess, were in the comics that Nico might have had as far as liking boys, girls, even if for a short period, that was just knocked straight out the window. And I did like the Nico and Carolina relationship during it. But anyways, so like I said, Topher in the comics is a vampire, which again we do not have vampires in this world of yet. Um, which I thought if they had done something like that, yes, they're not established yet, but it could have opened the world to greater things. Be it Blade, be it well again Dracula, vampires in general, but again that's probably just way too far out there, so they want to try to keep it simple. And for the storylines, the whole tying it to Molly, or at least his story, to try to tie it to Molly. But anyway, so again, kind of disappointed that they didn't keep him truer to his comic counterpart, but I understand for the reasons of the series and whatnot. Um, and then, where they eventually, if I remember right, destroyed Topher, killed Topher. I don't think he escaped. I think he was killed. Uh, well, this Topher was also killed, but it was because he went on a rampage, yada, yada, yada. Um, anyways, so it was interesting to have him, and then through the storyline with Jonah, at one point where it's revealed anyone who saw season one, they're near the climax of season one. There's the big hole, which was the big thing. What was at the bottom of the hole? What was this all about? And I kind of had suspicions that it had to do with, um, you know, a ship or his race or whatnot, but wasn't sure. At one point, we find the Yorks, Gert's parents, say something about it's biological, whatever it is. So that made me think more. Okay, it's more aliens, and we find that is true. That it's Jonah's Gaborum, not Magistanian. Uh, Ship and family down there, which again is a new wrinkle, more of them, which play more into the end of the series. Um, so along with that, we have this whole thing where, uh, after Jonah and Carolina are secretly meeting while they're trying to take down their parents and all this stuff, that his ship, well, about like midway through the season, they try to resurrect it. I mean, get it so it can leave, but they're the thoughts of is it going to cause earthquakes and whatnot, um, and destroy California. And when that happens, amongst different members of the Pride, what's the word I'm looking for? Conniving and making their own, plans. They destroy, or they at least they destroy the Majestate. I don't want to say Majestate, the Gaborum ship. And, of course, we're led to believe that, that is it. They've won. Jonah's gone. The ship's gone. As we find out, that's not the case later in the season. And then not long after, well, when that was all happened, Jonah mentions a name when he's contacting his ship, Zavin. So for who is where's Zavin? Zavin right here, which again I was looking for a comic counterpart, but I couldn't find one right available. So you know, anyways, so Zavin, um, in the comic series is a scroll who, if you into any non-comic um, fans, just movie-wise, if you've seen the trailer for Captain Marvel, the scrolls are what seem to be like going to be the main antagonist, or one of the antagonists for Captain Marvel. They're green reptilian, like I guess you could say, shape changers. Green pointy ears, ridges, shapeshifters. Um, and Zavin, when introduced, gives Carolina the lowdown of that he is her fiance, basically her betrothed. So, which is due to a prophecy, which they haven't gone into much. Which in the comics is because because Carolina's parents made a deal with the scrolls to kind of save themselves and Earth, I believe it was, or Madison, by promising them in marriage to kind of solidify a peace. Of course, that didn't work out, and Zavin becomes one of the runaways, like core runaway in the stories, in the comics, and whatnot. So similarly here, Zavin is a shapeshifter, but not a scroll, which I'm kind of like. He's from because they're shapeshifters. Is from, I think it's a planet called Zoltar. Hold on, let me get it again. Eh, but something like that, where I'm just like, why did they decide, if again it is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe indeed, could they not just make her a scroll? Because we know from Captain Marvel that the scrolls will be obviously playing a big part in that movie and possibly going forward. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like, is it again that movie as opposed to TV series things where of course, the movies have never referenced anything from the TV shows, whereas the TV shows, the Marvel Netflix to um, Runaways slash Cloak and Dagger, make light references to the movies, or as we've seen a little bit more now, each other. Um, I'm wondering, is that why it's been? Which would, again, kind of suck since they're supposed to be all in the same universe per se. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. It's just a very very interesting question. Um, So yeah, sorry. Anyways, um, but yeah, it's just another one of those little things that I thought was kind of odd, and I just I think it could have tied things in much more, but they just decided not to for whatever reason. Again, TV versus movie things, we'll never quite know exactly what's up with that. I do hope, though, that with the Disney streaming service coming up, where they've announced there's going to be like a Scarlet Witch series, Loki series, Cap and Bucky or Winter Soldier series. Of course, those will be the characters from the movies, short little miniseries. So obviously they will tie in. But I do hope that they do bring more cohesion between. I give this rant on every one of my Marvel shows. Sorry, between the TV shows, Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, Agents of Shield, which has another season. Has been the sixth season hasn't even come out, and it's already been renewed for a seventh. So, anyways, and Coulson's going to be in Captain Marvel. So, I would love a little more cohesion. Now, I will see and say in addition to um, our little Easter eggs of having Topher and Zavin, even though they're not quite their counterparts. Zavin more so than Topher. Um, that Crap, what was I about to say? um, they like Alex at one point references Wakanda. Almost kind of like a throwaway in there, but obviously Wakanda does exist in this world. This is supposed to part was part of the Marvel universe. Period. Whether it's part of the MCU again, technically, which one of the Jeff Lovitz said, who's high up in Marvel or higher in Marvel, main staple in Marvel, and on these shows and stuff, that it is. Um, again, Wakanda, which is the country that Black Panther is the ruler of. It was kind of mentioned in a thing, and there might have been. I'm sure there were a couple other Easter eggs that I didn't even think about, as I watched them the first time, or I've forgotten. I was like, but and I will say one thing at the end. Uh, Again, long story short, Zavin also shows up after they've destroyed Jonah's ship, and we see some of the characters. Victor Stein, Chase's father. Um, I can't remember Mrs. York's first name. Stacy York, Gert's mother, and Tina Minoru, Nico's mom, are all acting kind of strange here and there. And I kind of figured that it was, they were possessed, but I mean, and it's revealed through other things in the series they are by Jonah and his family that were destroyed when the ship was destroyed. They've possessed them and they're taking them over. Um, amongst all that, uh, Chase decides to return home when his father, who has been taken over by Jonah, says he is still sick from the brain tumor, which was, said to be their last season. Um, and, Chase goes home to the Runaways' dismay, basically is talked into joining the Pride, a new, better Pride without Jonah. Um, and as the last episodes show, the Pride then make weapons, make things to go after the children, and when their talk with Chase fails, and we see Chase talking to before he talks to his mom on a tablet, he's drawing the Leapfrog from the comics, which is their vehicle. Now, Leapfrog's name had been the name of, I guess, the vehicle that they own, just like a big, I guess, SUV or whatnot vehicle. Uh, last season, earlier, earlier in the season. But they showed him designing the leapfrog, which is a vehicle which looks like a frog, jumps, and it's a sentient vehicle that his parents designed in the comics, but he's designing in this. So it was a cool little Easter egg to see. And um, for season three, which I'm guessing there's going to be a season three. I hope um, that it comes to fruition because the show, I understand, I guess, needed a life of its own. So they veered a bit off from the comics, whereas, the whole thing, like when shortly after the thing with Topher came, then there was another kid named Victor Mancha who turns out to be the son of Ultron, the robot from Age of Ultron, for those of you fans of the MCU, and no comic fans know Ultron in general. Um, and Where was I going with this? Sorry, it's late, so my brain is kind of out. But yeah, I mean, there were other additions, which obviously we haven't met. Victor Mancha. I don't know if they plan on introducing him in some way or not. Um, and other characters, other things that have gone on, including up to introducing Zavin and that whole arc where he and Carolina leave for a while, but I don't foresee that. I don't foresee that happening right now. The way that they started things, um, or they introduced Zavin and their what might be their whole relationship. Anyways, but I don't know. Like I said, there's just, I mean, and so many storylines that are after that could be used as inspiration for the series. But almost just about everything, I'll put it this way, in season two, um, not everything, I'll say maybe 70%, I would say, is their own version of things. Yes, we have some of the staples, like again, the Runaways finding the hostel, Topher, even though he wasn't a vampire, um, you know, some infighting within them, but nothing big. Um, of course, Zavin now being part of it. All that's a bit different, as in the comics, there was no Jonah, because both of her parents, the Deans, were um, magis- Magistanians. So there wasn't that whole thing and trying to get off the planet, yada yada yada, because they were kind of exiles, I believe. Um, so it's given it a whole new weird storyline again, where the Pride was again, secret cabal. Um, Here they're more fronted as legitimate business that does a lot of good, but with the wrong reasons under bad reasons under tow. So where they go with this, I'm interesting to see, because I do like the show for what it was. As a fan of the comics, I will, as I've ranted here, will always compare them a little bit. But I mean, it in itself is a great show, and it opens up a lot of doors. So we'll go down a quick little review of all the main Runaways and what I see some kind of dangling threads and where we could go. So we'll start with um, Alex. So in spoiler alert again, in the comics, um, Alex, okay, the Pride, there's the whole ceremonies with the Gaborim and yada yada yada. The Runaways find them, find out where the ceremony is, and they basically and all this stuff. We find out Alex is kind of a double agent, a spy, or he was always loyal to his parents and to the Pride, and I mean, he had, well, not the Pride itself, but to his parents, and he basically betrayed the Runaways, and because of it, he ended up getting killed with the rest of the Pride and a whole thing with the Gaborim. So obviously, as we don't have the Gaborim god beings here, yes, we have Jonah and all that stuff here, but the Pride is all very much still alive. Alex obviously is still here. Um, so I don't know where they're going to go with that. And we did have, more character for Alex, in the sense of, um, all the dealings with, crap, my brain is going this mush right now. Jeffrey, his father, Jeffrey Wilder, his brother, his friend from the hood. Um, and there was some storyline there, and the girl, and all that, which none of that was in the comics. So that was interesting in itself. So interested to see what will be going on with him. Um, then, like I said, Carolina, who is half Gaborum. Yeah, I just don't like thinking of that. I mean, instead of uh, uh, Majestanian. Um, she again, we know that Jonah is back, taking over Victor's father. She's been captured by the infiltrated pride of Jonah's family, which kind of weird. I guess they can't do anything for her with her because she doesn't want to be any part of that. Um, but there's a conversation that happens at the very end of the last episode, which we'll talk about right before the end of this, which is kind of like, okay, weird. Um, but where are things going to go with her? Obviously, Gert, she's on the run with Old Lace, her dinosaur, who we saw. I mean, we saw Old Lace, but Old Lace wasn't in action a whole lot. And I get it, a CGI dinosaur, well, with I think practical sometimes and then CGI other times. You know, they have a budget, so they can only do so much with Old Lace. I get that. Um, but where do we go? They did flesh out, her and Gert and Old Lace's telepathic connection, which is really cool. And again, spoiler alert: in the comics, Gert dies. This whole thing, a version of Gert comes back from the future, who is the leader of the Avengers, I believe, if I remember right. And then, again, things happen, and Gert ends up dying, and Old Lace becomes bonded to Chase. So obviously, that's completely different, and we'll see how that goes. Unless, again, they're still planning on doing some version um, of these things in future um, seasons. Which again, I like all good TV, all good series. I hope it goes for a while. Not to the point where it gets stale, but a good 4 or 5 whatever seasons, as long as there are good stories and whatnot. So again, we have Molly, who is Gert's adopted sister here, rather than just being yet another runaway part of, well, another teen in the Runaways, which again, comics, not even a teen, but which I thought made the character so much more cute and endearing. I mean, she is a little girl, little adolescence with awesome power with these teenagers, you know, facing the world. I always thought that added an interesting element. But that's not as much the case here. Again, Molly's a little younger, not much, but she's basically like 2 years removed, I believe, from everybody else. Um, but so yeah, what's going to go on with her as okay, where they said so Gert is with her father now on the run because her mother has been co-opted. Um, as I said, Chase is a prisoner, I guess we could say, of his father because his father was co-opted by Jonah. So he and his mother are prisoners. Um, and then, like I said, we have Nico, who her father's in the hospital from a battle, and her mother was co-opted. So the only runaways remaining are, um, as far as in the hospital themselves, are Alex, Alex, Molly, and Nico. Zavin, who tried to protect Carolina from Jonah, failed in something. Oh yeah, and of course Mrs. Dean in here in the series, who again in the comics she's a Magistanian. She's a rainbow powered, as Carolina is not the case. She's just an ordinary human being here, and we find out she's pregnant by, I guess, another child of Jonah. Um, so there's that whole thing. We'll see where that goes. Um, so yes, so the last one, Nico, our witch, or I mean, she's a witch, even though they try to say it's not magic. Magic. Her mom tried to say it was science last season, but we see more that it may be dark magic from her appearance. That you know, seems kind of reminiscent of like the let's say mindless ones, or the followers uh, of Dormammu, like Caecilius in Doctor Strange. The weird dark eyes, skin breaking type things. So, and she is referred to as a witch through most of it, I guess, to get to establish that more than saying it was science, which Nico even in season one makes a comment about. It's science. Well, how do you put it? Magic, advanced science that we don't understand. So hence, called magic. Um, so Nico, who had been having some issues, and kind of blacking out here and there, which may tie into the last thing we'll talk about again, um, you know, seems to have like some more of a dark power, dark essence in herself, whether it's another personality or the magics taking over. And in the last battle with her parents, who I'm not going to say it's all stereotypical. Again, they're Asian, you know, but where they have never demonstrated, and even in the comics, they're wizards, but their outfits are kind of like ninja-ish, if you will. But whereas in this TV world, I don't remember as I watched through season one, or even anything in season two as I watched it through the first time, to indicate that they had martial arts training or whatnot at first. Then we see a whole fight scene with them and Nico and the staff and whatnot. And I guess, not to be, again, like overly weird political or whatever, because I mean, I think a lot of things are too oversensitive. But again, to see the two Asian characters bust out after no establishment of them having martial arts training into, fighting stances, you know, and we have this very well choreographed, in my opinion, martial arts sequence. It's kind of weird, and I don't know if I want to say stereotypical or kind of like a jumping the shark moment, but it was kind of weird at first, jarring. But anyways, during it, they think they knock Nico out. Then she raises back up, like I said, the black cracked eyes, and something happens, and her father says something, and her mom makes a comment. It's like, well, there are some things about the staff I never fully explain, which makes me to believe it is truly a magic object. Where in the comics, the staff of one, which um, actually emerges from her body whenever blood is shed, as opposed to the just identity, being able to use it that whenever her or her mother it pokes them. Um, that it's actually an item that was, as we find out in the comics, they went to the past at one point, time traveled, and it's something that's been, handed down through the Minoru line. So I'm wondering if we'll get a little bit more of that, and I'm hoping it's not just a coincidental look, that the whole thing with Nico's eyes, for instance, to illustrate the dark power, which we see that type of effect for. We've seen it in Buffy. We've seen it in X-Men Dark Phoenix when the Dark Phoenix took over. That type of thing. Be it the skin cracking or dark veins or whatever. Um, that it is shown to be like dark magic, i.e., kind of connected Doctor Strange, Dormammu, and whatnot. I think that would be a really cool thing, and to firmly further establish the unity between the TV shows and the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it. Yeah. And again, granted, whereas the Netflix shows, which take place in New York, always refer to the incident, and name dropped, Captain America here or there, or one of the others alluded to them because obviously it's in New York, and that's where the Avengers were based, and then of course Spider-Man and whatnot. Um, you would think if it were set there, there'd be more references, but they're in L.A. you know, um, so I think that so I could see, of course, why there wouldn't be a lot of um, reference or whatever, and you don't want to, as a crutch rely on, that connection, but still it would have been nice. So, like I said, hearing the little Wakanda throwaway was nice, but, would have been better, I think, if there was something more to it. Even, Iron Man 3, Tony's home, I believe it was in Malibu, so on the West Coast, and, so even kind of a mention like that or something would have been interesting. But, I mean, overall, like I said, love the show. So we end up with, Jonah and his family who possess Victor Stein, Stacy Yorks, and Tina Minoru, and they say, I guess his wife and his son, um, and they, or no, the son's missing, I guess. Um, uh, I guess there's another daughter, and he said brother. So they said there's one accounted for. If it was one of the parents, they would know. So with the blackouts, the problems Nico have been having, the question is she also possessed by one of the Gaborum? Uh, I don't know. Many questions to be asked. I just look forward to a lot of things in Runaway Season 3. And one of the last lines, as Jonah and his family are talking, he alludes to human beings as like being like food, and the healing capsules that then we see uh, Chase, his mother, and Carolina in. They're like, so which one is more tasty? And I found that kind of weird because of Jonah trying to get his daughter, so many times, and as she is half Gaborum, they would even say that. I understand that they need the energy from other beings to keep themselves living and not afflicted. But I just found it kind of weird that rather than just being kind of isolated with her powers inhibited, Carolina's in one of those tanks, and they refer to her. She might be another meal as well, possibly. But anyways, that is just my thoughts, my rambles on Runaways Season 2. Great show. I highly recommend it to anyone who is a Marvel slash superhero fan or a teen drama with some superhero elements to it, if you will. Um, and again, I will as always, finish with my one little excess rant. Um, I do hope that there is more connections. I mean, that, like I said, in the comics, Cloak and Dagger have figured into Runaways, have had or run-ins with the Runaways a couple times. So it would be cool, even to see this new Cloak and Dagger, whereas in the comics their experience been around for a while, but to see the new Cloak and Dagger from the show, which was quite well as well, to have some sort of crossover. Um, so yeah, that's just my thoughts. Thanks for listening to my rambles, my review of Runaway Season 2. As always, feel free to share, subscribe, hopefully give me a like if you like my content. If you don't, you can, but please, I don't see why there are those. I don't think I'm bad. But anyways, and just, let me know your thoughts in general, any suggestions on a good show, on my content, or whatever. What color you think the sky is. I don't care. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching. Peace.